Welcome to Fostering Solutions, a podcast that uplifts people and enterprises making positive impact in communities around the world. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Foster. My guest today is Petia. Help me with your last name.
Abdur Razzaaq. It's okay. Abdur Razzaaq.
Okay, Abdur Razzaaq. I met Petia, actually. I met her through some work we were doing at our old high school in Guyana.
That's right.
We went to the same high school. I was a couple years before Petia.
Just like two.
Just a couple.
Just a couple.
Thank you so much for making time to chat with me today on Fostering Solutions. So why don't you tell the audience about yourself? Who is Petia?
Yes. So I was thinking, I always answer this question differently, but I was thinking today I'm gonna do it much different than I usually do it, and thinking of two words to describe myself, right? Mm-hmm. And if I were to describe myself in two words, I would say that I'm a responsible rebel. I think that's who. Yes, I think that
sounds like a contradiction, but
exactly, right? Because when you think of a rebel, you think of somebody who doesn't follow any rules, or they're just out to break everything. And that's not really who I am. I definitely am not a sort of in the box sort of person. I do like to push boundaries. I do like to challenge the status quo, but not in a way that necessarily is harmful to myself or anybody else. Right. And when I was thinking of the question, it reminded me of what my grandmother said when I went home to Guyana to visit her in 2013, before she passed. And she was saying, I'm not at all surprised that you turned out the way you turned out, because even as a baby, you just always did your own thing. Like, you were never interested in. Yeah. And so I'll tell you a story that illustrates that and why I think it's a good way for me to describe myself. So I went to the creche, which I'm sure that was like the baby preschool in Guyana, right? Mm-hmm. And so they sent me to school really early because I was really smart. So 2.5 years old. And every single day my grandmother would go to pick me up. And every single day it was the same complaint. So the class is facing east. I would turn my chair around and face west, and I would be teaching my own class. And it wasn't like, so I would pay attention up to the point where, I was learning. It's not that I wasn't learning. I was definitely learning, but I learned quickly, and then I became bored. And when I was done with the teacher, exactly, I would turn around and do my own thing, like every single day. I was 2.5. So she said, that's who you always were. And I'm not surprised that you have grown up and you pretty much have remained that kind of person. Like, you still do everything that needs to be done, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you just kind of like dance to the beat of your own drum, and that's who you are.
That's awesome.
Right. Right. But aside from that, I would say that responsible rebel, yes, but there are other things that I'm even more proud of. I definitely think that I'm a great friend, very loyal. I have the ability to connect people. Right. And so for whatever reason, because of my personality, different kinds of people are drawn to me. And because of that, with me in the center, I'm then able to say, hey, you should meet this person that I know, because I think you guys would be a great connection. I was actually doing that 2 days ago with a cousin of mine and somebody else that I know, that he saw me make a post on Instagram, and he was like, hey, I want to meet her. And that's like constantly happening to me. You know what I'm saying? So I like to think that that is definitely something that I'm good at. And definitely someone who has always loved learning, meeting new people, just widening my horizons. My dad would always say, because XYZ, that doesn't mean you know everything. So go learn something else. Typical Guyanese, right? It's like the minute you stop learning, then you just, you as a person, that impedes your growth. So I'm always open to new things, new experiences, new people. Yeah. So that's pretty much me, I think.
Wonderful. So you're in digital marketing. Why don't you talk about what that is and just how you got into this career?
Sure. So digital marketing is what marketing has become, right? And the interesting part of this is when I graduated college, it was just the beginning of the whole digital marketing explosion. So all of my college work was more on the traditional marketing sort of things. And then when I graduated, it was the beginning of digital marketing. And it was completely a sort of learn on the job kind of career, because there was no real preparation for this when I was in school, right? Now things are changing. But to take me back, before that, interesting story. When I went to college, I was going to be a pharmacist. People are always like, what? Like, we can't picture you being a pharmacist. So I went to Simmons College in Boston. It's an all-women's liberal arts college. Now it's Simmons University. And my track was chemistry pharmacy. So Simmons had a relationship with the Mass College of Pharmacy. And so you did your 4 years at Simmons, and then you automatically went to Mass College of Pharmacy for 1 year. And at the end of it, you were a pharmacist. And I did it. And that decision just based on the fact that I liked chemistry in school, right? So what do you do when you're 16 or whenever? You say, oh, this is, everybody wants to be a doctor or whatever because they love science, right? I'm stuck with it for 2.5 years, and just for some reason, I was just not enjoying it. I don't know if it was the labs, I don't know, whatever it was. Part of it was the labs, the 4-hour labs. I couldn't take it. And so I went to my advisor and I said, look, I don't know if this is what I want to do anymore. Like, it's, I'm halfway through my college career. Like, what am I supposed to do? Do I just stick with it? Will I begin to love it again? What? And she said, you know what? Yes, I like this. She said, this is the whole reason for you being here. She was like, it's quite okay. Many people don't finish where they start. It's part of the journey. So what I'm going to have you do, since it's like halfway right through, is go to summer school and just take different things that you would not have taken because it's not part of your prescribed. And she was a different type of college counselor, because most of them try to like tell you no, whatever.
You gotta stay there.
Yeah, but she and I will forever be grateful for her. So she said, go to summer school and take different things just to like see, and I took like a music course and a film course and a marketing course. And I can't explain it, but something magical happened in that marketing class that summer. And so then I changed.
That was great advice then.
It was great advice. And so again, graduating from college, I stayed in Boston and I got a job with the Boston Globe's website that's called boston.com. Now, the Boston Globe was one of the first, if not the first, newspaper to digitize the newspaper. I think they were the first one. And so they took the Globe online. And then the New York Times followed after that. Yes. And so we were pretty much kind of like the guinea pigs, the Boston.com crew. It was very cool because we were the startup, but with the backing of the more established Boston Globe. And so the goal was to somehow turn Boston.com into a revenue producer for the Globe. And so that's how we started. We started by, first creating an online directory of businesses. That part was free. But then if you wanted to have a mini microsite listed where somebody can click on your name and go to this mini microsite, then you had to pay for that. And it was just fun because we were making it up as we went along. Like, nobody had done this before.
Did you have to learn any kind of like computer science?
Very basic. Yes, very basic, because they were graphic designers who had been doing this, that actually worked on the sites to build them. But for someone like me so I started, my first position was inside sales. I had to know the basics to explain to these business owners exactly what was going to happen, right? And then in school, I did take, was it Netscape? Oh my God, Netscape, I think, was a basic programming language. So I had some idea of, how the basic programming worked. But in terms of actually monetizing all of this and getting people to pay for an online presence, that part was brand new. And then, so that was my first position. And then I moved on to work in what they call the major accounts department. And so these were the larger corporations, not the small businesses. So your Dunkin' Donuts, your Fleet Bank, that was a huge bank in Boston that no longer exists. And they were paying big bucks to be listed in now the sections of the online newspaper. So your real estate section, your banking section, that sort of thing. And that's when I really had to learn, because it was a lot of analytics. So these people were paying for impressions. That's what people paid for at that point in time. And so if we promised them 1 million impressions for the month, you better believe we had to deliver it, because, they were our first customers. And so, I had to monitor numbers, move, the ads around the site to make sure that we were delivering, make recommendations maybe on places where I thought the ads would perform better. And I mean, it was just such a great time because, it was exciting. It was brand new.
Entrepreneurial for sure.
Very entrepreneurial, which I ended up being an entrepreneur myself. So that's pretty much how I ended up in the digital marketing space. And I just pretty much stuck with it.
Okay.
And the whole evolution of things, like sometimes I laugh at what digital marketing was then with the tile ads and the banner ads and everything that it has become now. I mean, it has really, the past 20 years have been a very interesting journey.
Yeah. So what hurdles, if any, did you have to overcome?
Of course, they're always hurdles, right?
Yeah.
So my vision and goal for myself when I started working was definitely to climb the corporate ladder, right? Like being an entrepreneur wasn't really something that I said I wanted to do. It was, I'm going to climb this corporate ladder and get as far as I could go. And twice along the way, I had setbacks because of downsizing. So September 11th, downsizing. And then again at the end of 2008, 2009, with the rest of the world downsizing. And the difference, what I did with both of those opportunities. So when it happened in 2011, I had been thinking of going back to school to get my MBA anyway. And after 6 months of interviews, more interviews, making it to the last round, not getting hired, I said, you know what? 6 months, this is 6 months of wasting time. I'm just going to go to grad school, get my MBA. Maybe that's the thing that's going to make me even that more marketable. So I did that then. And I did end up going back to work. But 2008, 2009 was different because I felt like, you know what? I've been working for quite some time now, and I'm starting to see some trends in what happens in the corporate world. Many times the people who are decision makers, they're making decisions that impact your life. And you clearly can see that some of these decisions are not the right decisions, but nobody wants to hear from you.
Right. No one cares, right?
Nobody cares, right? So you're sitting in these meetings and you're hearing these decisions being made and you're like, that makes absolutely no sense. And how can't you see this makes any sense? But guess what? They're okay. I'm the one that gets laid off when things don't go that right. So I said to myself, you know what? Enough. I think I know enough at this point. Let me just try to see if I can do something on my own, whether it's just consulting or whatever it is, because I've had enough of this twice in, less than 10 years. It's like every time you get to a certain point and then you get slammed right back down to starting over. And that's what I did. Took me about 18 months to feel confident enough that I could actually do this. Because my measure was, if I could make enough money on my own as my last salary, then there's no reason for me to go back and work for.
That seems like a good target,
right?
Yeah.
It took 18 months because there's a lot to learn, and I was doing a lot of small one-off projects, so they're like ebbs and flows. But once I was tracking it. Once I hit that, I said, you know what, game's on. And it's been 12 years later.
It's awesome. That is awesome. So how has the pandemic affected you now? Because you talked about 9/11 and the downturn in the market 2008. Now, pandemic.
Yes, exactly. So challenge number 3, right? Challenge number 3. So yes, the pandemic did affect my business in the beginning, because obviously clients took a hit. And if clients take a hit, then they can't pay you, right? However, what I will say is that it's very important, not only as an entrepreneur, but just as an individual, as a professional, to never put all of your eggs in one basket, and to always be thinking of the brand that's you. So yes, I have my business, but then there's also Petia, the brand, right? And so I've always done things aside from the business to establish myself as a center of influence, or whatever you want to call it. And so those things have included teaching at colleges, doing speaking, and that sort of thing. So I'm going to tell you this: November, so before this shutdown, I got a call from someone who wanted to refer me to the Grow with Google speaking program. So this is before pandemic, someone I had worked with in the past. And she said, Petia, I know of this opportunity. I think you would be great. Are you interested? Absolutely, yes. Right. And so in the process of me going through that program and being accepted and getting my certifications and all of that, the pandemic happened. So even though my business took a hit, because I was in the process of working through becoming a Google speaker, I was still able to continue as if there was no pandemic. Because guess what? All of these Google speaking assignments now, before they're intended to be in person, but they pivoted to them all being webinars. The demand for quality webinar programming went up.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? And so even though the business did suffer and we still aren't back to where we were, because of that other sort of alter ego or whatever you want to call it that I have, I was still able to do pretty well, thank God. Because then I just, started doing a lot of speaking and working with the Grow with Google team. And so, thankfully I've been able to maintain myself because of that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So how can we, a part of why I'm doing this is really to inspire young people to pursue, to really see who they can be.
Right.
I'm doing this series now with women in STEM. And so it's like, I want young people to see, okay, I could be like her. She looks like
her. Of course. Right. Exactly.
So what advice do you have for inspiring young people to pursue a career like yours?
I agree. I think those of us who have a platform need to use it to connect with young people. I was thinking about, what is the difference? Like, why do some people make it no matter what, while others never seem to, to grab a foothold? And I think for my experience, and I'm sure you can relate to this as well, being immigrants and coming from a place where, yes, third world country, own struggles and challenges, that's why we're here, right? That has to be acknowledged. But there's so much power in growing up and seeing people like yourself be doctors, lawyers, engineers, and maybe went to Queen's College. Everybody who's anybody comes from Queen's College. That is a very powerful foundation to have. And so I think that those of us who have a platform absolutely need to use it to connect with young people so that they can start to see themselves in us and know that it's possible, and share all of our stories in an authentic way so that they're relatable. Because I think what happens is that a lot of times once people get successful, they forget. All of a sudden, like everything is perfect.
Amnesia. It's like,
right. And I'm on top of the world and life is always great. I mean, give me a break, right? That's not how it is. And so you even if you are successful, I think still being relatable is very important, and definitely in your own small way, making an effort and a concerted effort, not just a one-off sort of thing, to use your platform to connect and inspire young people. I think that's all that it is.
And it's really just being, like you said, authentic and proud of your beginnings. Being
exactly.
Very, whenever I speak, I'm always saying a part of what makes me who I am is the way I grew, where I grew up, and
exactly
how my parents came and restarted their whole career
from scratch.
From scratch.
Crazy.
I mean, my mom was teaching at the Teachers College when we left Guyana, and she came and was teaching at a daycare center. But there was no. They did what they had to do to get us started.
The grit and the perseverance. Absolutely. So
it's never worry about where you start. It's just how
exactly. And I think because of where you start, you can use that as a very powerful story to connect with other people who may feel that because they're wherever that they can't move forward or they shouldn't move forward. You know what I mean? It's very important. Very, very important.
So what do you know now that you wish you knew when you were a student back at Simmons College, trying to figure out, where you want to go in life? What do you know now that you wish you knew then?
Great question. I would say that sometimes more than 50% of your success has to do with who you know, as opposed to what you know. And so I think that, so I came here, when we came to this country, I went into the 11th grade, even though I was only 15, because I had an uncle who worked with the Board of Ed, and he told my dad the reason why immigrant children are usually put back is because parents don't think to come with whatever transcripts you have. So they don't know what you know.
Right.
So they put you backwards, and of course that never works because we just excel regardless. But he told my dad, especially coming from Queens College, that he should definitely bring my transcript. And so they saw my transcript and they were like, what? What do you mean? Like, I should have been in ninth grade, but they were like, there's no way in hell that we're going to put this girl in ninth grade, right? So I ended up graduating high school at 16. Anyway, so I think that we're so, as immigrant children, right, so hell-bent on we got to study, we have to, right, we have to do well, whatever. And so that whole part of it, we don't really focus on the networking part and the joining of the clubs, and everybody else does it, right? But we don't really know.
That is so true. Even
the
now,
clubs,
it's like I have to make myself.
Right. And then you see people, speeding ahead of you, and you're like, what the heck, right? And if you've been in class with them, that they may not have been that bright, but how? And it's usually because they know the right people.
It's just networking and talking.
Exactly. So the doors that you have to kick down are opened for them. And so, I've learned how to do it because I had to. And so I definitely advise young people to, you got to balance it. The academics are great. Absolutely. Without a question, you should do well in school, but also look around you and make connections and seek mentorship. Another thing, seek mentorship, because these things become very important when you move into the world of work.
Absolutely. I've noticed that because a lot of times I'm focused on, this is the job. I'm really trying to be good
at exactly
the work and the systems and the process, and then folks want me to be more social and more
It's a very, very important and very, very important part of things. And so I have an older daughter, Soleil's a little one, but I have an older one that's in her 20s, and I've been pushing her to do more of that, join clubs and go to networking and meet people, because
go to conferences and
don't be afraid to get up and speak, because I hear people speaking all the time, and I know you experience this as well. Sometimes they don't know what they're talking about, but they sound like they do, and people believe them, right?
Oh yeah.
So, having a little bit more gumption and definitely building your network over time becomes very, very important as you move along.
Yep. So what's next? What's next for you?
What's next for me? Interesting. So I recently, it's been about a year, and in the trajectory of this slowed down by COVID, but myself and two other women that I know really well, we started this multi-ethnic mommy community called Mosaic Mommies. And so the goal of Mosaic Mommies is to build a really strong platform of mommy influencers who can then work together to promote products and services geared towards the mom community across all racial and ethnic lines. However, what we want to do differently, because this seems to be an ongoing problem, is to also work with brands pre-launch or whatever to give them feedback on, products and services that they are going to roll out. Because especially in the ethnic market, time and time again, we see brands, rolling out products that are culturally offensive or whatever. In 2021, there's no reason why this should still be happening. And it's because there's nobody sitting at the table who can say, hey, this is really not right. Something's wrong with that. So we've been working, COVID kind of like knocked us off of our original goals, but we're still working really hard to do a hard launch. We did a soft launch in last year's 2020. We did a soft launch in 2019, at the end of 2019 at Bloomingdale's, with some local mommy bloggers, and it was very well received. So hopefully by the summer we can get back more on track.
That sounds like fun.
Startup. There's definitely a need for it. And what's different about what I've done thus far is that it's three of us, not just one of us. So we can kind of share the work, because it's a lot of work.
It makes it so much
share
lighter.
the load. It makes it so much lighter. Right. And also looking forward to being able to travel again.
I know, right? Oh my
Right.
gosh, some kind of normalcy
Some
again.
kind of normalcy, right?
And to go to
Right.
music festivals,
Oh, and
that's my favorite.
museums and
Yeah,
oh my gosh. All of the I feel like all of the wonderful reasons why I love living in New York City, they aren't here right now. It's
I
like,
know you're just under lockdown.
right.
Yeah. So what sets your soul on fire? What really gives you hope to press forward, during these times of uncertainty?
You know what? Conversations like this, and there are a lot of conversations like this happening. There are so many brilliant people of all ages, but seeing younger people have these conversations is what
Yeah.
really gives me hope, because they're the future. And especially when you have children and nieces and nephews and whatever, like, you want to imagine a world that would be different for them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that it's going to be easier, because the world is becoming that more competitive. But
Mm-hmm.
hopefully it's going to be a little different. Hopefully, you know, people will start learning to get along and not be so bigoted and biased. And
At least now
there's
we're
just
being open about
now
race.
we're being
Yeah.
open about it,
Yeah.
exactly, which is the starting point. But there's just so many really great conversations happening across all racial lines, all ethnic
Mm-hmm.
lines, and it's just really refreshing. That gives me hope. And I
Absolutely.
hope that it's not just an in the moment thing, and this actually becomes a consistent way of life and a way that people interact. And it's okay to not know. Like, last year with the whole BLM thing, I got a lot of calls from people that were like, Patia, I'm embarrassed, but I really didn't know this, or I had no idea. And that's fine, right? That's fine. It's okay
Mm-hmm.
to not know. But then now that you do know, what you're going to do about
What you gonna
it?
do about it? Yeah.
What you're going to do
It's
about
like,
it,
once you know better, is it Maya Angelou that says, once you
Yes,
know better, you have to do better?
exactly.
So,
Exactly. So definitely, I love that. And like I said, just learning and experiencing new things. The world is huge, humongous, right? And it's
no,
just like, you know, just incredible. There's so much to learn and experience. So I like doing that
absolutely.
sort of stuff.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you for just,
Very welcome. This was
saying
great.
yes when I asked to my
Of
little
course.
podcast, just a project, just to, like I said, encourage some folks, let people
Right.
know that they're people of color, especially doing great things,
Absolutely.
and encourage some young person coming up behind us.
Right,
So,
right. And there's just one thing I want to say when it comes to digital marketing in general and just technology in STEM. We really need to understand and realize that the divide that we have um, in Black and Brown communities, especially Black communities, we have to close this divide.
oh yeah.
We cannot continue to be left behind, because I will
It
tell you
concerns
this.
me what's going to happen to the kids who are supposed to be doing virtual stuff.
Oh my gosh. We just have to, and there are resources out there, and there are, tools out there to help you. We just have to learn to look. And if we don't know where to look, we just have to ask and not be
Ask
embarrassed
someone.
about it.
Absolutely.
Right? We just have to, because even with, like, the COVID and businesses, the businesses who were able to pivot to digital, even if it took them a little bit of time, they
Mm-hmm.
were able to pivot successfully because all along they had been doing something.
Right.
Right? The
Right.
businesses who were not doing anything digital at all, unfortunately, there was nothing to pivot to.
Right. Right.
And I see that a lot with minority business owners. It's
Mhm.
very sad and it's heartbreaking, but we just have to, somehow try to catch up. We have to.
It seems like I need to get you and Sarah Nurse together, because that's part of what she's doing and studying Black
Yes.
businesses and the
Yes, we are
challenges that
so
they face. Yeah.
behind. We are so behind. It's a shame. It really is a shame. And I'm not really sure what that block is, because sometimes I think that even when the tools, and this has happened to me a lot, even when the tools are presented, there's a sort of block that's there that prevents them from moving forward. Like, they just always go back to what's familiar and what they're comfortable with. But those things no longer work,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a lot of work to be done there. So
And I
yes,
think it just
I
takes,
would love to talk to Sarah.
yeah, I think that should be a very interesting conversation. But I just think it's familiarity. It's where they're comfortable, and it's, I think when
Mhm.
you get to a certain And I don't know if it's a generational thing as well. Maybe when you get to a certain point, it's like, okay, I don't want to learn another thing.
Another thing,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right.
But
right.
there's where you need to get support from others to help.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
So you can focus on your thing, whatever that is.
Right.
And get the
Right.
support you need to really help you to be successful. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
You're very
Hopefully I can get
welcome.
to New York sometime this summer. Yeah.
Right? That would be great. That would be an amazing thing.
All righty then, Petia. Take care.